Since 2009 alone, there have been 16 reviews of hundreds of randomized controlled trials. Randomized controlled trials can show cause and effect, looking at saturated fat, seed oils, and heart disease. Every single one of these reviews has found that when you replace saturated animal fats with seed oils, it does not reduce your risk for mortality or cardiovascular disease. And I want to go over just 3 of those 16 right now. This first one is a review of 17 systematic analyses of clinical trial data published in BMJ Evidence-Based Medicine. And authors concluded this review by saying, quote, "Diets that replace saturated fat with polyunsaturated fat do not convincingly reduce cardiovascular events or mortality." Another review of 19 meta-analyses published in Nutrition Reviews concluded by saying, quote, "Meta-analyses of observational studies found no association between saturated fatty acid intake and heart disease, while meta-analyses of randomized controlled trials were inconsistent but tended to show a lack of association." Or this third study, published in the Nutrition Journal titled, quote, "The effect of replacing saturated fat with mostly omega-6 polyunsaturated fat on coronary heart disease, a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials." Authors concluded this by saying, quote, "Available evidence from adequately controlled randomized controlled trials suggests replacing saturated fatty acids with mostly omega-6 PUFA is unlikely to reduce coronary heart disease events, coronary heart disease mortality, or total mortality." Again, that is just 3 of the 16 reviews that have been done since 2009, and they have all found that when you replace saturated animal fats with seed oils, there is no benefit. All right, so now we ask the question, is there actually science? Is there high quality science out there showing that if you have elevated LDL, elevated total cholesterol, that you actually have less risk of dying from cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality? You bet there is. The first one is a 2016 systematic review published in the British Medical Journal, where researchers looked at data from 30 different studies involving more than 68,000 older adults, and they concluded by saying, quote, "High LDL-C is inversely associated with mortality in most people over 60 years old. This finding is inconsistent with the cholesterol hypothesis that cholesterol, particularly LDL-C, is inherently atherogenic." The second one, this is the largest cohort study ever conducted on this subject. Researchers analyzed data from more than 118,000 individuals for more than 8 years, and they found that those who had the highest LDL-C levels lived longer than those who received statin treatment. Or this third study, published in the Annals of Nutrition and Metabolism, researchers found that high LDL-C is not a significant risk factor for women of any age. Now, this fourth study is where it gets pretty wild. Published in the American Heart Journal, researchers looked at data from nearly 137,000 patients hospitalized with a heart attack. They found that nearly 75% of them had LDL levels within healthy and normal range. How can elevated LDL be the culprit behind heart disease, behind a heart attack, when 75% of the people in this study had healthy and low LDL levels? Well, I'm going to answer that question in just a short time to come. And now we're going to look at the fifth and final study, where researchers looked at the LDL of 517 patients hospitalized with a heart attack. Half of them had normal, healthy LDL levels, and the other half had high LDL levels. After following these patients for more than 3 years, researchers found that the patients admitted with low, healthy LDL died more from all-cause mortality compared to the patients with high LDL. The researchers even went on to say that the higher all-cause mortality persisted even after adjusted for confounding variables. The data is really all over the place. People die with low LDL, people die with high LDL, people die with low cholesterol, people die from heart attacks with high cholesterol. This is something that mainstream professionals really often overlook. They get so hyper-focused on LDL, total cholesterol, and heart disease. But there's so much more to it than that, and that's what I want to break down now. One of the major issues with seed oils is the fact that they create many toxic byproducts when we break them down in our human body. Because seed oils are mostly rich in PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, mainly linoleic acid, they easily incorporate themselves into our cell membranes because we are a monogastric species. We have one stomach. We don't have the proper enzymes to be able to detoxify from excess linoleic acid, like a ruminant animal, cow or bison. They are able to detoxify that from their body. Humans, we just accumulate linoleic acid in our bodies. While we need a certain amount of linoleic acid from our diet because we can't make it, we are getting way too much in our diets nowadays. 100 years ago, we were eating mostly animal fats and a few plant fats like olive oil and other minimally processed fruit oils. But now we are eating 80% of our fat calories coming from seed oils, and over 20, maybe 30% of our total calories are now coming from seed oils. Now, the problem with eating too much linoleic acid from seed oils, because our bodies can't eliminate it or detoxify from it, we produce a lot of toxic byproducts called oxidized linoleic acid metabolites, or oxalams. And the science has never been more clear on this. These metabolites are more inflammatory than linoleic acid itself. And all these metabolites that I'm going to throw up on the screen right here have been shown to be more problematic than linoleic acid and lead to a host of health conditions. These toxic metabolites of linoleic acid are 20 times more abundant in the LDL of patients with atherosclerosis compared to controls. But not only heart disease, these metabolites are also associated with many other health conditions like chronic pain, Alzheimer's, fatty liver disease, autoimmune conditions, and cataracts. Now, the next problem with eating too much linoleic acid in our diet is that this leads to oxidized LDL. Sure, seed oils might help to lower your LDL like we just talked about, but they're going to oxidize it. And this is the major issue. To reiterate this point, that excessive linoleic acid in the human diet from seed oils leads to oxidized LDL. There was a 2017 study where researchers examined LDL cholesterol in men with coronary artery disease compared to a control group of men without coronary artery disease. What they found was truly shocking. They found that the men with coronary artery disease had a significantly different LDL cholesterol composition, which included higher levels of linoleic acid and arachidonic acid. Their cholesterol was also significantly more oxidized, which means it's structurally damaged, which the study authors concluded by saying that it's due to the linoleic acid content. This study shows that individuals that have heart disease, a heart attack, or other cardiovascular issues, their LDL is structured differently. It's damaged, it's hurt. Whereas if you have healthy LDL, if you are eating stable fats from animal fats that don't oxidize, animal fats like butter, ghee, tallow, lard, these don't easily oxidize. These are more structurally stable. They will not cause a ton of oxidation, if any, inside the human body. Unfortunately, mainstream health professionals and this Whole30 team is still focused on the older narrative of looking at heart disease through just a very narrow lens, that lower LDL, lower total cholesterol is going to reduce your risk for chronic disease. But it doesn't matter how low your LDL goes if it's being oxidized by seed oils and linoleic acid metabolites, then you're still at a large risk of cardiovascular issues and other issues. But the newer research suggests that the amount of oxidized LDL is a much better predictor of cardiovascular problems. And what's more, even newer research published just a few years ago found that atherosclerosis might not even be possible without oxidized LDL cholesterol. This might be the exact reason why we saw earlier in the video 75% of patients that had a heart attack had low LDL, because their cholesterol might have been oxidized. The goal should not be to lower your LDL as much as possible. The goal should be to keep your LDL and your cholesterol from becoming oxidized. And how do you do that? You eat more whole foods and more healthy fats that are saturated, that are going to be stable, that aren't going to oxidize when you cook them, like tallow, lard, butter, and ghee. So I appreciate you being here. If you like this content, be sure to leave a comment, a question, like this video, subscribe, because we have a lot of incredible content coming your way just like this. Be sure to send this video out to somebody that you know likes this topic about seed oils the most, and I'll talk to you next time.